Hey there everybody, and welcome back to more Sword of Etheria. So once you finish Chapter 7, the game opens up a super useful feature, which allows you to go back and replay previous chapters, in case you missed an item or in case you wanted to work up a rank. In my case though, I wanted to work up some stats and get some more items because the next chapter is a little bit of a doozy, but without further ado, let's just go ahead and see how hard it will be. So before we go deal with those nearby enemies, first off, we want to go ahead and pick up our collectible for the level. Probably the easiest one to find in the game. And And sadly, that's probably going to be the easiest part of this level.
Be careful not to get too close. You'll catch fire.
Yeah, Almira is very correct in that. These enemies that we've seen before now appear to be doused in flames, and if they hit us, or even just touch us, they will put a damage over time effect on us that can add up pretty quickly. Still, they don't have any other additional offensive capabilities, they just have a lot more health, but really, your main worry is going to be this guy that Almira and Leon are beating up on. And we'll find out more later just what kind of danger he is. But first, some guys were running up here. Yeah, and it was because they were trying to lead us into a very deadly ambush. This is another reason why I think by this point in the game they opened up the ability to go back to previous levels to really start working up your stats and maybe buying some new equipment, because at this point, yeah, especially with the damage over time, you're probably going to need to be working up everything. Otherwise, you're going to be dying a hell of a lot.
Here we go!
Still, though, you don't necessarily need to kill every enemy to move on. It's just in some cases, it's a good idea to try to keep your tension gauge up as much as possible.
Almira!
Because you want to make sure you can destroy these Ords as quickly as possible. And also because usually next to the Ords is going to be a very nasty ambush. In addition to the fire enemies here, we have some projectile enemies we can't get to, and I think some brand new flying enemies. Their electric projectiles will lock you into place on the ground and stun you, which, as you can imagine, when you're completely surrounded, you don't really want to be stunned so much.
Wow, nice move!
But you may have noticed that one of the items that I did purchase was called a soul bracelet, and that is the, I'm wanting to say, base level item that will help us build up tension quicker. So you might notice that we should be getting death blows a lot more often. Yeah, even the larger shield and sword enemies give it their own fire variant. And they're as deadly as you might imagine.
Here we go! Almira! Leon, I'm on it. Here we go!
Even being as somewhat cautious as I have been, and as aggressive as I have been, even Feel, with all of his upgrades, and even his additional armor, is still suffering quite a bit, and yeah, this ambush is, we're not going to fare too well in it. Now, normally I would say don't focus on the big guy, because usually you're going to have a bunch of little guys hitting you in the back, but with his super wide arcing attack, it's usually a good idea to take care of him first.
No, not yet.
Really, though, as long as we can get one good juggle going, one good death blow going, it should clear out a lot of these really nasty enemies.
Here we go!
Now, at this point, I have been trying to work in more the attack cancel in midair, especially to do a downward swing, just to get a little bit of extra damage. But I've noticed that occasionally it will cause the AI partners not to catch the juggle. I'm not sure if that's something intended, or maybe I'm just throwing them off, because I'm not doing a normal juggle attack. But it can be kind of frustrating when you're just trying to do a little bit of extra damage and it messes up the juggle.
All right. Here we go!
Yeah, I think we finally got a little bit of a view there in regards to what those new enemies do. They will do kind of a multi-missile projectile attack that will home a little bit, but more importantly, once it hits the ground, it does do a pretty considerable explosion. And that's why usually you want to take care of those guys first, because, well, AoE explosions with partial homing attacks are not really something you want to deal with. Still, we did manage to get a few healing items after that minor knockdown that Feel had. And we've been doing pretty good on the Etheria front. Almost 2,500 is not too bad for about halfway through the stage, but this arena is really where things will start to step up because, well, it's pretty easy to miss behind the sword and shield guy. But we do have one of those multi-projectile gentlemen we need to take care of as quickly as possible, along with a few stunning flying enemies. Thankfully, unexpectedly rather, I did manage to get a level 2, which knocked out quite a bit of the enemies.
Here we go! Let's get him!
More importantly, both Feel and Leon, or both Almira and Leon, are still managing to get quite a few juggles in the background. And yeah, what would normally be a very difficult enemy encounter is not only taken care of very quickly, but also very profitably for us. Still, there is going to be one last large hurdle for us in this particular room. The first being that, well, dealing with about 6 of these sword and shield guys at once, you realize why they don't normally do this often.
Here we go! The bridge! We gotta bring down the bridge!
Also, we find out that the main objective of this room is not just to kill the enemies, but also to take down this overhanging bridge, because we kind of saw whenever we entered the room, but there are quite a few ords sitting on it, and we'll need to destroy them to continue our progress. Now, you may be thinking that there might be an end to these horrible sword and shield guys. You'd be wrong on that end. They will apparently spawn infinitely. I'm assuming to not only be an inconvenience, but also in case you wanted to work up your tension gauge to maybe take down these pillars a little bit more quickly. But yeah, more than anything, they are just a massive, massive inconvenience. I mean, it is nice when you can pull off a death blow and maybe hit 2 pillars at once, but yeah, if at all possible, yeah, just try to focus on the pillars and get out of this room as quickly as possible, because you're not really going to get much Etheria from them, and you're probably just going to lose a lot of health. Yeah, my bravado gets the better of me here, and I assume that maybe I could get some Etheria out of these guys. But I think this is one of the respawn waves because, yeah, they give me absolutely no Etheria.
Here we go!
We just continue to whittle down my health, and yeah, at this point, this is really not where you want to be low on health. Because that little puzzle of sorts, I hazard to call that, is actually our last step before fighting the boss.
Feel. Something's wrong. I don't feel too good. Huh? What in the... Oh no! The poor Etheria! Well, well, look what showed up! A god!
This is a god.
You're nothing but a little puppet the gods made.
Yeah, so the boss for this level, and the first time we will see it, is the appearance of one of these mysterious gods. I hope that not all the gods are some weird dragon, crab, magma monster, but yeah, Tenurus Malagina is a pretty fearsome foe. Very difficult boss fight. You can already tell we can manage to stun him a little bit, but even with all three of us just wailing on him, we don't do a terrible amount of damage. And that's because, as with most bosses, you want to try to work up your tension gauge, and there's only a very few opportunities to do that. He will sometimes spit out little baby magma balls, and when those pop out, you get a few opportunities, a few enemies that you can maybe try to juggle around in case you maybe do a little bit better than I am. The main problem with that is while you're doing that, Malagini here is still doing his super wide attacks, his long-range flame breath, his machine gun blow. I'm not sure how he shoots machine guns. And even in the midst of all of that, he will sometimes start charging about, mashing down the ground, doing very wide AoE attacks, hitting his own men and destroying things that you would normally use to work up your tension gauge. He also has a pretty massive jumping rocket propulsion attack, but it decides not to do it this time around, which is it's not really that difficult to deal with. It mostly just makes you run all the way to the other side of the arena. But yeah, your main focus here is not only to try to dodge his massive attack radius, but also just to work up that tension gauge and try to do that death blows pretty much as quickly and often as possible. Because he can do a pretty insane amount of damage. He can also take an insane amount of damage, but thankfully, we can get another death blow, and we win!
You're nothing but a little puppet the gods made.
I'm not a puppet!
Kid!
Bill!
Elmira! Leon!
Miserable wretches. You dare take on a god? How foolishly pathetic of you. I refuse to let the gods be bothered with your stupid antics any longer.
So rather suddenly, Feel's weapon breaks, hot in the midst of battle, and all three of them barrel further down into a bottomless pit. What will happen? Tune in next time.